Dear ladies and gentlemen and guests, let me start the session of the Dissertation Council dedicated to the defense of the dissertation of Yulia Vovenda, seeking an academic degree of Candidate of Political Sciences in the specialty 23002, Political Institutions, Processes and Technologies, on the topic Particularities of Information Security Policy by Executive State Government Bodies, a case study of the Northwestern Federal District to be opened. Well, by the Act of St. Petersburg State University of 20th of November 2019, number 1147-1-1I, Vasilieva Natalia Alexeyevna, Doctor of Philosophical Sciences, Professor of the Department of World Politics, St. Petersburg University, has been appointed chairman of this dissertation council, and I would like to now call the names of the colleagues that are members of this dissertation council. Natalia Merkushina, Doctor of Political Sciences, Professor of the Department of World Politics, St. Petersburg State University. Konstantin Pansarev, Doctor of Political Sciences, Professor of the Department of Theory and History of International Relations, St. Petersburg State University. Rebecca Wolfovich, Doctor of Political Sciences, Professor of the Department of Public and Municipal Governance, Northwestern Institute of Governance, the branch of the Russian Academy of Economy and Civil Service of the President of the Russian Federation. Also in a remote mode, we have John Gregory Simons, Doctor of Philology, Uppsala University, Sweden. I would like to mention first that according to federal law dated 23rd August 1996, number 126 on science and state technological and scientific policy, St. Petersburg University was awarded the right to award academic degrees independently, and an corresponding act on the procedure of awarding such degrees in St. Petersburg University was enacted. It was enacted on the 1st September 2016. In accordance with this act, a session of the Dissertation Council is legitimate if not less than two-thirds of the approved list of the Dissertation Council, but not fewer than 4 people are present. Our Dissertation Council has 5 members. Everybody is present. One of the members is on Skype with us. So this is the agenda of this council, and this council session will not exceed 2 hours. The first item is a short presentation of the chairperson regarding the paperwork that has been submitted and whether the paperwork complies with the requirements. 5 minutes. A short presentation of the candidate seeking an academic degree on the essence of their work for 15 minutes maximum. Questions to the defendant, not more than 2 minutes per question. Then the answers of the candidate. Members of the Dissertation Council will then read out their reviews, not more than 10 minutes per speaker. Then the chairperson will read out her review, then answers of the candidate of not than 15 minutes in duration, open discussion from the floor. Anyone present in the room can speak up, but not more than 5 minutes per speaker, but the speech should cover only the the presentation that they've heard. In order to do that, everyone willing to make some comments has to register in the journal and sign up for a presentation. And then concluded statement of no more than 5 minutes from the defendant. Then the academic advisor will have 3 minutes to present his or her opinion. Then 5 minutes before an open voting procedure will be allocated for 2 deliberations, and the broadcast will then be switched off for the duration. And after that, open voting procedure, and the chairperson will enter the results into the protocol, to the minutes, and then a decision is taken whether to award or not to award the sought degree, and the concluded statement of the candidate of not more than 2 minutes. Before we start fulfilling the agenda, I would like to ask you to switch off your mobile telephones. Thank you for your consideration. But also I'd like to bring your attention to the fact that a live broadcast is carried on the website of St. Petersburg University, accompanied by simultaneous interpretation from and into Russian, from English into Russian and from Russian into English. And now I'd like to start with item 1. This is my short overview of the paperwork that has been submitted to the Dissertation Council. Well, what we have as a personal application of the candidates addressed to the rector of St. Petersburg University, Nikolai Kropachev, for the dissertation to be accepted. That's dated 7th of May in 2019. The review from the academic advisor, Mikhail Kucheravi, and then the list of publications consists of 5 works, 5 titles, and all of the 5 titles are published in journals that are certified by the Ministry of Science of Russian Federation. There's a report, there's a certificate on the study period, in postgraduate study period, with all the marks in different exams, all of history and philosophy of science, foreign language English, political institutions, processes and technologies, all excellent marks. There's a degree diploma of the postgraduate study completed, and then there's so the list of publications is, as I already said, the candidate exams in the degree field 410601 in political sciences and religious studies with the ID 23002, political institutions, process and technologies. So this history of philosophy of science, foreign language, English, political institutions, all exams are passed with the mark excellent, and the as I mentioned, the diploma on the doctoral studies that was issued on the 8th of October 2018, issued by the Russian Academy of Economy and Civil Service of the President of the Russian Federation, that states that Yulia Vovenda has been awarded the qualification of researcher and teacher and researcher in the degree field 410601, Political Sciences and Religious Studies, according to the decision of State Examination Commission dated on the 20th of September 2018. There's also a certificate of the organization which the candidate represents that states that the actual work was written by the defendant. And the dissertation in Russian and English, in both in hard copy and in soft copy, the dissertation complies with the requirements of the state standards, and the dissertation is published, photocopied with all IDs. And also, I would like to mention that all the documents comply with St. Petersburg University requirements. And now I would like to give the floor to the candidate for a presentation of not more than 15 minutes. Dear members of the Dissertation Council, dear chairperson, let me draw your attention to my dissertation in specialty 230002, Political Institutions, Processes and Technologies, on the topic Features of the Information Security Policy by the Executive Bodies of Government, a case study of the Northwestern Federal District. The relevance of the research topic the relevance is due to the dynamics of development and growing scale of the application of information technology in all areas of human activities. Currently, information is acquiring the status of the most important object, a strategic resource of both the state and any management structure. And therefore, the state should focus on the development of state security. The development of new technologies leads to an increase in the technological gap between the ever-increasing complexity of the requirements for security indicators and information resources in the constituent entities of the Russian Federation. There's a growing need from a theoretical point of view for scientific understanding of the hardware and software information security tools. From a theoretical point of view, the high degree of relevance of the dissertation research is determined by the scientific search for comprehensive measures, means and methods for improving the information security of political structures, increasing managerial potential, and particular regional executive bodies. From a practical point of view of the development of political technologies, the relevance of the research topic is manifested in the following. The Doctrine on Information Security in the Russian Federation states that due to the development of information and communication technologies, new challenges and threats to national security are generated because the information space can be used to achieve military, political, economic, geopolitical, and other goals. The increase of dynamics and the scale of economic and information threats speaks about the misfit, the insufficiency in the security measures due to the low personnel management and personnel competencies, and also due to lack of funding. It is the relevance on the search topic Together with the new capabilities, new technologies created previously non-existent challenges for government officials. These factors were updated, including in the political life of the Russian regions, including, for example, in the Northwest Federal District. Just worth noting that the available human resources, material and information resources, as I said, do not provide a proper response to this centripetal growth and development of threats emanating from the information space. Various aspects of ensuring information security were considered in the work, and some recommendations were drawn that will help optimize the activities of executive bodies of state power to ensure information security. The various aspects were covered in Russian and foreign studies. The most significantly developed areas include the protection of information process and technologies and the organization of information analytical activities. However, despite the significant amount of research that has been already carried out, the problem of improving information security in the constituent entities of the Russian Federation remains an undeveloped research area. As the main sources of the study, it is worth highlighting regulatory, legal acts, organizational and administrative documents, methodological documents, prepared draft documents of the Federal Service for Technical and Export Control, including the regional acts of the Northwest region of the Russian Federation. And the legal acts used in this study can be divided into groups. The first group included documents that affect various aspects of the legal support of information security, Doctrine of Information Security of the Russian Federation. The second group of documents defines technical measures to protect information. Our analysis used political science analysis, comparative analysis. The aim of the study was to identify priority management mechanisms to ensure information security in executive bodies. And to achieve this goal, the scientific tasks presented on the slide were formulated and solved. The research methodology was based on a comprehensive analysis of mechanisms, measures, and results of ensuring information security in the executive bodies of stated body. The following results that determine scientific novelty were achieved. The author singled out the typical functionality of services and structural units that ensure information security in the executive bodies of state power at the regional level. Second, the logistics of the actions of the structural units to ensure the security of information in the executive bodies of state power at the regional level, taking into account internal and external threats to the security of information. Third, the structural and functional assessment of ensuring information security and the security in the executive body of state power of the constituted entities is proposed, and the functioning of their information protection system, the level of technical and regulatory support for information security are examined. Based on the study, the following provisions are made in the paper and the research work. The problem on ensuring information security requires the improvement of legal, organizational, technical mechanism for regulating public relations arising in the information sphere. That's number one. That includes information infrastructure facilities, especially critical infrastructure. Number two, the geopolitical features of the constituent entities of the Russian Federation that are part of the Northwestern Federal District, in particular, the border position, the location in its territory of a large number of consulates and foreign missions, a significant number of critical facilities, enterprises of the military-industrial complex, including the enterprises of the shipbuilding industry, state and military authorities of the federal and strategic levels, research institute and organizations in the field, and threats Threats from the global information space greatly increase the demands on the stability of information security system. Based on this, it is necessary to develop and apply technological measures to ensure information security in the executive bodies of state power, including in the field of countering foreign technical intelligence. Third, in the course of the study on ensuring information security in the executive bodies of the state power, a number of problems were identified that led to an increase in the number of violations in the organization of work to ensure information security. The main negative points include the imperfection of the managerial staff, which leads to errors in the organization of the information protection system, lack or ineffective use of technological means of information protection, insufficient level of training for information security or specialists, the creation of a formal structure for the protection of information that do not fully fulfill the task. These negative aspects indicate the need to improve managerial mechanisms in ensuring information security. Fourth, in the modern world, the problems of ensuring information security come to the fore. That is why in Russia the attention of authorities focused on the implementation of a breakthrough strategy, which should be based on an already high level of information security, development of digital technology, which is in the future will lead to the proper level of information security, in particular in the executive bodies. In this regard, it is necessary to ensure the organization of a system of quality training and retraining of specialists in the field of information security, development of organizational and technical measures to protect information in the executive bodies of state power, regional systems, state information systems, and key systems of information infrastructure, optimize the work of security services and structural units for the protection of information in the public authorities. The digitation research allows us to draw the following conclusions. Firstly, the process of informatization has now is encompassing all countries, and therefore the formation of the information society is a regular stage of a civilizational development, resulting from the impact and the interaction of information and communication technologies in the public infrastructure, culture, social structure, economics, and the law. Information security is a significant element at the national level and national security system. Thus, the effectiveness of ensuring information security determines the success of ensuring state security on a global scale. Secondly, the state information policy of the Russian Federation determines the activities of government bodies and public administration processes in the information sphere. The threats to ensuring the information security of the Russian Federation highlighted in this dissertation research are constantly being transformed and improved. In turn, activities are aimed at implementing state security in the field of ensuring information security must comply with changing conditions. It can be noted that at present, the level of information security is not fully consistent with current processes, the needs of the state and society. Thirdly, the solution of information security problems requires an integrated approach ensuring the rule of law and economic feasibility, technical equipment, and staffing of authorized services. Fourth, the features of the Northwest Federal District, the capabilities of modern intelligence tools 24/7 to monitor cellular communication channels, intercept internet traffic, as well as collect information on the activities of state authorities, defense industry enterprises, determine the adoption of measures aimed at technological information protection. Fifthly, the information security of the Russian regions included in the work of the Northwest Federal District. This is represented by a set of measures that have the organizational, technical, and legal nature of internal and external directions. The structural and functional assessment of ensuring information security in the regions of the Russian Federation that are part of the Northwest Federal District, and they identified violations in the implementation of information security functions, made it possible to identify and highlight a number of typical violations typical of government authorities on the basis of which the study presents its results. Sixthly, the structural and functional assessment of ensuring information security of the regions which are part of the Northwestern Federal District, made it possible to determine the main management mechanisms, implementation of which will increase the efficiency of the government state protection system. Thank you very much. Yes, we have time for questions, and the questions should address strictly the presentation and the key issues of the dissertation. I am very interested in your work. We have very large practical work, practical part. What sources did you use, and where did you draw your conclusions from for public authorities? And the second question, in the development of your topic, the information security is regarded as a combination of soft power and network failure. So have you dealt with these concepts, and if not, why not? Well, I would like to address the first question. As far as the sources are concerned, I actually worked in the external commission of state security between 2016 and 2018. We had some tests, assessment of the protection measures or systems of state power, and this information that we accrued has of course a confidentiality status. Well, of course I could not work with it in the same way as with open sources, and maybe I didn't mention some sources of that's where I got some concrete figures, is because I am bound with a confidential agreement. But I looked at all the regional informatization concepts within the Northwest Federal District, and on the basis of empirical data and the legal documents that are publicly accessible, and drawing on the realities, of course, I drew up my recommendations. And the second question is very interesting. At the initial stage, we did address soft power, but because we decided to focus on empirical data and providing practical recommendations to government authorities, soft power was not deemed necessary. That's why we dropped it. Are you satisfied with the answers? Yes. Thank you very much. Again, I have questions of this nature. I understand that the candidate faces the problems that we all face when we deal with municipal and government and public governance, because the relationship between this and political science is quite indirect. And therefore, we really make sort of hypothetical conclusions. But you use an example of the Northwest District. So the question is, what specific government bodies work at the level of the regional level? What is their mandates and their functions? And another thing, this is what you said about the necessity to protect information systems in connection with political information. What political information did you mean? And as my colleague previously said, more maybe for your future work, the problems of information security touch upon not only public authorities but the economic sphere as well. And this topic has been developed very well. Huge institutions work on software development to protect information security information, and this is a gigantic market. Is it possible to use these findings and these developments to protect public information? Because if you work in an isolated manner, the state will face difficulty. But there's an opinion that when hardware is developed in the private sector, public authorities cannot really use that software. Is it true? I will start with the first question. The topic of my dissertation is the peculiarity of the policy and information protection milieu in the Northwestern Federal District. And the object of my dissertation became a narrowed one. These peculiarities political peculiarities will be only addressed at the level of executive bodies of the federal district. We look at the regional level only, and the recommendations at the regional level are provided exclusively. And then, of course, territorially it's more convenient because we wanted to show all the dimensions that cover all the regions with the parts of the federal district, and so we try to compare and draw conclusions. And the federal district is not a constituent entity of the Russian Federation by the Constitution, as amalgamation of regions or constituent entities. We didn't draw recommendations for the federal district authorities. So, political information. What kind of information do you mean that needs protection? Well, thank you very much for your question. What do I understand under political information? This is the information that is necessary to implement or to take decisions, political decisions, in terms of management. If we, for example, St. Petersburg, at the level of governors, vice governors, and committees, these decisions are politically important, and these are this is the political information I meant. The third question, there are of course, public organizations develop protection measures in isolation from the private sector, and that's why in our relevance section we identified the weaknesses of cooperation between departments, and it would really help if public institutions cooperate with private institutions, and and at the level of at the federal level, it should be, of course, underwritten, and we. Well, there are some bodies that identify threats, and also the private institutions work on this, so they could work together. So this isolation of this kind, but as far as the information security at the level of the state, all the conceptual documents, including the doctrine of information security and the digital economy concept, state that Russian-made software can only be used in this in provision of this state security, professional security. What would be the role of artificial intelligence in protecting information? How are these technologies applicable in state bodies and the federal and the Northwest? Thank you very much for a very interesting question. As far as this issue of artificial intelligence, it's in an early stage. At an early stage, basically we cannot even replace all the software and hardware with modern hardware and software that would protect against intensified threats, let alone using artificial intelligence. In the future, such technologies would be useful, but then you would have to take into account the threats that even more so included in its own nature of artificial intelligence. And if we, for example, look at the information security in accordance with the digital economy, there is a provision that document management systems that connect management systems of different government departments should be made at the electronic level using electronic signature, and the federal taxation service tried to implement that, and they found out that electronic signature was stolen on a huge scale, and if at this very simple in this very simple case we cannot develop this information security documentation turnover, then secured. Maybe Professor Simons has a question.
Yes, I do. I was reading attentively your very informative part of your thesis. Now, there are some known risk factors.
Вы выделили 9 факторов риска.
And those are laid out, and you say the consequences of not preparing adequately for them. And my question is, what are the future ones? And this is connected with the previous one. I mean, how do you see these risks and threats developing from what they currently are and what they currently could include, which this is with reference to development of such things as artificial intelligence and machine learning and aspects like this?
Спасибо за вопрос.
Your question, as far as the main problems currently in terms of the protection secret, and they can be internal and external problems. As far as the most pressing problem for public authorities is identified in the doctrine of information security, and we try to expand the list of threats, but that as far as the problems that are most important issues from the external list is that foreign powers put increasing pressure on the Russian Federation in terms of information and commercial intelligence and technical aggressions, and the doctrine specifies that, and especially the target is the government authorities, as far as the in state authorities, such state bodies use foreign-made technologies, both hardware and software. Such technologies are not screened internally. They're not even studied or controlled, and nobody looks at them in terms of hidden threats, and they're just used by the government authorities. Well, there are a number of problems that the users that work for state authorities, they use the internet. They are the active internet users that use in their workplace, and there's no protection. Well, there are no really network firewalls, and they use flashcards that can carry any viruses that can contaminate each other's computers, and there are some organizational issues in the high executive offices. Doors are not closed, and you can hear anything that is going on. Then, in terms of acoustic intelligence, well, there's quite a few problems that is. Are you happy with the question, with the answers?
I was thinking more along the predictions.
Я хотел.
What are the current ones, but I want to understand what are the future predictions of threats.
Thank you very much for your questions. We tackled the current state of affairs, what we have now in the state bodies, and we tried to develop methods that would tackle this situation and ameliorate this situation as part of the. So we didn't build any predictions or prognoses in terms of international technologies, but we can say that the means that are used by foreign countries or political groups can obtain information from state bodies will be made even more sophisticated, and that will be a threat. That's it. Do you have any other questions?
No.
Нет. Please. To follow up, Konstantin Rashidovich asked a very interesting question. I think that you look at the development of artificial intelligence in a very pessimistic way, but in Brazil, the developments in this sphere show good results, and in Russia, artificial intelligence is also a focus. Are you a pessimist in this issue? Well, are you pessimistic that our wonderful human intelligence can be replaced by this thing, artificial intelligence? So maybe you can elaborate on your pessimistic position. I am an optimist, of course. I believe that the situation can be rectified, and that's why I wrote this paper, this work, and to make them think about this situation and try to doctor it. Well, maybe my pessimism comes from the situation of my practical work for state authorities, and I could see that all rules are broken, and no procedures are followed. Well, in St. Petersburg, the situation is a little bit better, but if we go further into the provinces, this is the information security is very pessimistic, and whatever you do to hope that the situation will change is very hard. And because this is just, I draw my pessimism from my practical experience. This is an example. For example, take St. Petersburg governor. They have a press service. They know everything about his plans, his movements. This information is confidential, but in some informal groups in an informal way can divulge this information, which is absolutely to journalists or to friends and stuff like that, and this is absolutely unspeakable, and you just are in awe. Well, the lack of discipline and understanding of what should be done, what cannot be done. Thank you very much. No more questions, and then we are going to now listen to the reviews. There are no external reviews, therefore we can only listen to the reviews of the members of the Distinction Council. Well, let's start with Natalia Yurina, please. Dear Chairperson, dear colleagues, I had a dual, an ambivalent impression after I read this statement. First of all, I was very happy to see in it that the school of Yuri Kosov lives, and that the kind of degree students carry on that were under the guidance of this professor, and this is very important. Igor Vasilievich Kosov was a great luminary, and this is great. And the second thing I would like to point that you mentioned the relevancy of tasks is undoubted, and this is the School of Civil Service and Economics Academy. And the second thing I would like to mention here is the original approach to empirical data analysis. The author worked as a practitioner, and therefore this work is full of very important recommendations to practitioners. This is the most important value of this dissertation. But despite this, I have some criticisms of this work. Well, they have to do not with the practical side, but with some structural issues and lack of focus on some issues and too much focus on the others. The first one is the structure of the work. Well, usually, we usually have more than 2 chapters in a dissertation. That's the St. Petersburg University format, but I know that the Academy of Economy and Civil Service has a different format, so that's just what we have only 2 chapters. Well, this is just to me it's one drawback. The second, you have some journalism jargon there rather than academic language, and the work and the narration is a little bit descriptive rather than analytical, and the provisions are a bit diluted, and there's problem of identifying what exactly you are advocating and arguing. The biggest part of the work is in terms of the papers that you publish that that concern the practical parts of the dissertation. They're co-authored, which is not a very good thing. And maybe and then another thing is that there's a lack of literature review. I would like to learn more about some concepts that are covered there. And there are some inaccuracies. 118 and 17 page is all technical. All the foreign intelligence, according to foreign intelligence, especially from the Consulate General of the United Kingdom. Well, it has been closed a long time ago in St. Petersburg, and is still foreign intelligence still working for the building, which is and well, maybe it's just a mistake. Well, there's some other minor details that I disagree with, but as I said, I have a dual attitude to your work, and well, I'll just say that that the approach, the practical part, is quite strong, and I would say that in general my criticism doesn't diminish the value of your work, and of course I would like to say that as my last statement, of course, that is required by the dissertation requirements is that the dissertation meets the basic requirements established by order number 6821/1 of September the 1st, 2016, on the procedure of forward academic degree at St. Petersburg State University. Candidate Yulia Vladimirovna Vovenda deserves to be awarded the scientific degree, the academic degree of candidate of political science in the specialty political institutions, processes, and technologies. Thank you very much. Would you like to answer the questions? Yes. No, I would like to answer all questions after all the reviews have been read. I'm not going to read out my descriptive part. I'm not going to read out my descriptive part. The work draws on large data and a lot of sources and legal acts, and the author was successful in analyzing this complex issue, but I already said it, but the author had difficulty because the problems had to be purely political, but managerial issues make inevitable inroads into this, and some issues need to be tackled, such as well, you were actually advised to put in the title of the research paper a case study of the subjects of the Northwestern that are part of the Northwestern Federal District, rather than the case study of the Northwestern Federal District. And so, well, if, for example, if the author dealt only with the subjects, with the regions of the region federation that are part of the federal district, it would be great. It would be clear. But here we have an examination of issues at the level of a non-existent entity, the district. We have again. The author tackles technological, managerial, and other issues that have to do with information security, and there's no clear connection with political issues there, and therefore, but we have this, research is defended in the degree field in political sciences. Well, there's more sociological analysis rather than politological analysis. There's a serious discrepancy between the name of Chapter 2, the problem of insurance protection security of regions, and its first paragraph that identifies the same thing, but in a Northwest Federal District, and this we cannot see where the connection is between this district and the regions that are part of, and page 92, the author provides as a chart that deals with the infrastructure and the connections, the network between different elements of activities Well, it looks like there's only a subordinate connection, although the regions and the regional bodies are not subordinate to any bodies that are not non-existent of the federal district, and also the research work has no mention of the representative bodies of the regions. Of course, the executive bodies play a leading part in the process, but the representative bodies, legislatures, are very, very important, and the picture is not complete without them. Despite the criticism, the dissertation of Vovenda Yulia Vladimirovna, the peculiarities of the executive bodies of the regions of the in the executive bodies of Northwestern Federal District complies with the required standards, and Yulia Vovenda deserves to be awarded the third degree of Candidate of Political Sciences of St. Petersburg State University. Clause 11 is not violated. Konstantin Alexeyevich, is your turn. Dear colleagues, I would like to draw your attention to the relevance of the research field, which is obvious. The work covers a very topical issue, so it's self-evident. The author put in a lot of effort into scrupulously analyzing large amounts of data and lots of sources of data, which is the base of the study. But and the work is comprehensive, but undoubtedly the work is not free from some drawbacks that I would like to focus on. From my point of view, the author should have explained why the federal district of the Northwest was chosen. Well, maybe it would have been more interesting to do a comparative analysis of state bodies between different districts of the Russian Federation. And in terms of abbreviations and map symbols, they're not uniform. They should be made uniform. The dissertation has some typos and stylistic drawbacks that diminishes the value of the work. The author also says on page 130, the issues of security, information security should be attracted by the attention because St. Petersburg has over 30 foreign diplomatic missions, and they're all equipped with security intelligence equipment and radio and all, including the UK. So from all foreign missions, portable devices can be used to spy. What do you have this data from? We need the source. on the 1st of August 2018, the General Consulate of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland actually ceased to work here. And therefore, this discrepancy leads to a bigger question. And but conceptually, the quality of the work is no doubt the main results of the dissertation have found their way to the publications in rated journals, and therefore the dissertation by Yulia Vovenda, Particularities of Information Security Policy in the Executive State Government Bodies, a case study of the Northwestern Federal District, complies with the requirements of the procedure for award academic degrees at St. Petersburg State University, and therefore candidate Yulia Vladimirovna Vovenda deserves to be awarded the academic degree of candidate of political science. Professor Sinus, your turn to present your opinion.
Okay, so first of all, to note that I read the English language version, which was from pages 192 to 362. From this, I mean, it's I have a number of similar findings and conclusions to what has already been said, so I won't hammer through too many of them. But we have the chapters, the thesis structure, so an introduction, 2 chapters, 3 sections in each chapter, a conclusion and a list of references. A total of 6 objectives of the thesis are enumerated on page 202. And these include considerations of a theoretical and methodological background to information security. Now, the thesis itself spans not only academia, but policy maker and practitioner worlds. So it covers some different perspectives, not just an academic one, but different aspects of it. And certainly Yulia Vovenda has produced a great number of publications in a relatively short space of time, and this is certainly to be commended. Now, the source material, there are 31 pages of references, so this goes in with what the others on the council have said. It's an impressive amount of effort which has gone into the research and background material. There are some, I also agree that there are some shortcomings. I mean, in terms of its empirical standing and its these kind of practical and policymaker aspects, the thesis is very solid. Where there is definitely some background weaknesses, I think this comes in the theoretical aspects. You mentioned that there are some theoretical bits and pieces, which you could say, which are put in there. But these theoretical aspects, they don't deal with the strategic overview of your thesis. And so when you're writing a doctoral thesis, the main thing is, what is its contribution to the greater academic knowledge on the topic? And you certainly contribute to the empirical in terms of policy making and practice. But, for example, if you had chosen a theoretical perspective such as securitization, so this constructivist approach, that would have certainly brought you a lot of benefits because you'd have been able to have a more systematic structuring and analysing of this huge amount of empirical data that you've collected. As it stands, sometimes it goes backwards and forwards, some repetitions and some other things, but a theoretical background such as, just for example's sake, securitization would have helped you better structure and get a greater academic analytical value from what you had collected. And I mean, this is merely in terms of, in the spirit of constructive criticism. This is because the thesis itself is still quite strong. For example, considering what is the value of information. And I mean, historically, the value of information has been clear, and maybe some historical examples would have been a great way to illustrate how information security and its compromisation historically has changed history. And there's no better example than the cracking of the Nazi Enigma codes. And this was before computers. Well, this was the very beginning of computers, if we like, with Turing and so forth. But the cracking of the Nazi Enigma codes gave a huge strategic advantage to the Allies fighting the Nazis. Without it, it would have been much more difficult. So, I mean, you've got a clear case which you can use historically and bring its relevance. I mean, how is this still relevant currently, especially if we're going into this new round of geopolitical tensions, which some call the new Cold War. So, I mean, if I'm to sum it up, I mean, the thesis covers a highly topical and relevant issue of the 21st century. And at this stage, it's under-theorized. And although you have your theoretical weaknesses, it possesses a very strong practitioner and policymaker dimension. And this work does contribute to a deeper understanding of policymaking and practitioner dimensions associated with information security in the Russian Federation, and in particular Northwest Federal District. So, I mean, these strengths compensate to a certain extent the identified weaknesses. And the dissertation meets the basic requirements established by Order number 6821/1 of 1st of September 2016. And candidate Yulia Vladimirovna Vovenda deserves the award of the degree, and clause 11 of the aforementioned order is not violated. Thank you.
Спасибо большое. Ну, теперь моя точка зрения, как в данном случае председателя. Прежде всего, мне хочется...
Well, now as a chairperson, I would like to state that the reviews are on the whole positive that we heard from the dissertation councils. So important to note again that the work is practically oriented, practice-oriented, and this applied character is actually the applied character of dissertations are very much in favor, in demand by the state in the Russian Federation. And in this regard, I like Chapter 2, where this material that Yulia Vladimirovna actually knows in and out, because she has practical experience working in this sphere. In the methodology section, the author didn't mention the method of modeling that could be very useful to show some working models in improving security functionality of state bodies. And the second issue then follows the originality. The functionality, the originality deals with the functionality of state organs at the regional level. In the appendix, you could have again modeled some institutional instruments of raising the effect of improving the effectiveness of such functionality. Well, in general, the work covers a very important issue. The results are explicit. And they relate to the text, and the dissertation of Yulia Vladimirovna Vovenda meets the basic requirements established by order number 6821/1 of September 2016 on the procedure of awarding academic degrees at St. Petersburg State University. The candidate, Yulia Vladimirovna Vovenda, deserves the award of the awarding of this academic degrees candidate of political science in the specialty 230002 political institutions, process and technologies. Item 11 of the aforementioned order is not broken by the author. Thank you very much. The members of the District Council and the chairperson for all your reviews. I would like to comment on what I will start on your criticism in terms of the you said that I should have said that this political process take place both at the level of the district and at the level of the regions that are constituent parts of the district. That's true. I should have said that, but I implicitly mentioned that the political process take place at the regional level of the regions, and the practical recommendations are made at the district level, but they also related to the regions, each regions. So therefore, they can be considered both district level and regional level. So I just put them all together in a territorial. From a territorial perspective, in order to group them somehow, and the peculiarities that are mentioned in the work, of course, make an impact on the work of each of the state bodies of each region, and. In Chapter 2, the peculiarities of the Northwest Federal District, I mentioned that NATO embassies and consulates have intelligence equipment, and therefore. And also there's equipment that it operates from the territories of the NATO neighbors, and that covers both the units of the federal district and also other federal districts of Russia, and we. And also we looked at the federal district because there are some dedicated agencies that operate at the level of the federal district. That's, for example, the office of the plenipotentiary of the president of the Russian Federation, president in the federal district, and the technical control service also under the auspices of the plenipotentiary and so on. You had a concrete question. What pressing problems we have? Them according to the doctrine, the following issues I identified as the most pressing is information, technological intelligence, foreign intelligence, the activization of foreign intelligence, including computer attacks, hacking attacks, and these are all political problems. Although technical intelligence and computer attacks are technical problems per se, but they become political if they destabilize the work of government of organs, and therefore these threats are political. And therefore they can affect the policies of the state organs, and therefore we should develop ways of addressing these threats and countering such attacks. And without highly qualified personnel and competent managerial staff, this problem will not be solved, and therefore we looked at the negative factors that exist in this area, that exist in information security, and we suggested recommendations, managerial recommendations in terms of paragraph 1.1. Methodological treatments. Problems of information security were tackled, and it was all too easy to slide into technological procedures and protocols, etc. And whenever I wanted to present this problem in terms of political science, wherever I went to conferences, the academic community actually looks like they were resisting a political dimension of this. They wanted to hear about technological advances that deal with this, and they wanted to put this issue into the technological sphere alone. And we tried to put it up front in terms of the and therefore we try to connect security issues with a political decision maker. And well, I thank you very much for all your comments, and of course I would like to well, in terms of subordination, I didn't mean that the subordination is purely vertical and that the regional bodies are accountable to the federal district bodies. Of course, that's not the case. We just show that they're interconnected and their inter-influence And the structures of the federal district are sort of the umbrella institutions for the regional bodies. In terms of the representative bodies, governance, self-government, local self-government bodies, unfortunately, was beyond the scope of my research, and therefore I decided to narrow down my material to the executive branch. And Natalia Yuryna mentioned that in point 3 in the provisions to be defended, I mentioned the critical analysis of providing security issues. That I dedicate too much space to it, but without such an analysis of the negative sides of the situation and the lack of managerial cohesion, etc. In terms of the lack of theoretical concept, well, I use Stoner and other theories that you mentioned. Of course, in terms of these theories that they have in common that they all detect changes in the contemporary society under the influence of information technologies, communication technologies, and of course the fact that the consulate was closed. That I don't mention it is of course a clear drawback of the decision, but I would stand by my conclusion that a lot of intelligent information was collected from this building while it was occupied by the consulate. And I also would like to mention that a lot of the issues that have not been included in the in this research work, I actually included in my recent paper presentation at a Eurasian political studies conference, and that was not included. And also there's some constraints in terms of confidentiality and classified information, and that I had access to, but I cannot include it. In terms of the comparison of federal districts, I couldn't, I didn't want to tackle this because I only worked practically in the state bodies of the Northwestern Federal District, and I didn't feel that my expertise would help me, and and therefore I would say that all your comments are valuable for my future research. Gregor Simon's comments are all accepted with appreciation. The hypothesis is really missing. The hypothesis would of course help to connect the real life picture with the theory, and you also mentioned that a single strategy would help unify different aspects in my research and the historical experience of obtaining information and intelligence work is of interest, of course, but unfortunately the scope of my research and the didn't allow me to focus enough on in the historical examples, and of course I can do it in my future work. Do we all have any comments? Simon, do you have any additional comments? No.
No.
Then we would like to proceed further. So we don't have anyone signing up for this for the floor for discussion. Therefore, I would like to read out the review of the academic advisor. She couldn't be here with us, and so the relevance. Professor Kshiravi points to the relevance of the topic, because the information security is a very important issue for Russia today, and the research is valuable for practitioners and policymakers, and also regionality is mentioned. A high professional level of analyzing legal material and statistical material, and that contributes to valid conclusions. The research testifies to the fact that the author is in command of research methods, possesses independent analytical skills and erudition in political sciences, and the materials of the dissertation have been the results have been actually implemented by the author in her practical work for the governor of St. Petersburg, for the administration of St. Petersburg, and the Federal Technical Service, Control Service. And the conclusion is that the dissertation meets the basic requirements established by the order of September, the 1st of September 2016, and the procedure for awarding academic degrees, St. Petersburg State University, and because it makes a contribution to the political science, and the level of the work allows the academic supervisor to state that candidate Yulia Vladimirovna deserves to be awarded the academic degree of candidate of political sciences, and the clause of the mentioned order by the author is not broken by the author. The next item on the agenda is deliberation. We have 5 minutes for that. Discuss the resolution, and therefore I would like the broadcast to be switched off, and all the members of the audience that are not members of the academic council, please leave the room. And I will invite you in when the session is over. deal with the voting procedure. The session is now continuing. The broadcast should be switched off. Please make sure that the broadcast is on. So this is a decisive moment of the Distinction Council session. Do we have broadcast on? Well, then I put to the vote the resolution to award the sought academic degree. All members of the academic council will vote. So a positive verdict is taken, is legitimate if more than half of the Distinction Council members vote in favor, but not fewer than 3 members of the Distinction Council. That's according to the procedure of awarding academic degrees in St. Petersburg University. A member of the Markushina, I support the work. Member Konstantin Pansarev, in favor. The member Wolfovich Rebecca, I support.
John Simons, ваше мнение?
Yes.
Ну и председатель.
And the chairperson of the council, I also agree with the decision to award. Therefore, dear colleagues and members of the audience, out of the 5 members of the Distinction Council, 5 members voted in favor, no nays and no abstentions. So the decision to award an academic degree of political sciences and the specialty 200002 Political Institutions, Process and Technologies to Vovenda Yulia Vladimirovna is taken. So the dear members of the Distinction Council, on my part, I would like to thank you for the attention that you the attentive, scrupulous treatment of my work and for your interesting and very useful comments. The session is therefore closed. I thank you, everyone, for participation. Please switch off the live broadcast of the